Imagine waking up tomorrow with a pounding, blinding toothache, like the kind of pain that just takes over your entire skull.
Oh, that is the absolute worst.
Right. It's awful. But instead of, picking up your phone to call a dentist or grabbing a bottle of ibuprofen, your very first instinct is to grab a compass.
A compass.
Yeah, a compass, because you need to physically align your body to face magnetic north.
Oh, wow.
And then while facing north, you start rubbing a crushed ladybug directly onto your swollen gums.
I mean, that sounds like absolute madness to us today.
Total.
But if you were managing a household in the early 19th century, that wasn't madness. That was just Tuesday.
Exact.
That was the actual established medical protocol.
And that is exactly our mission for you today. We are taking a deep dive into this truly extraordinary document.
It really is fascinating.
It's an 1833 Swedish text called the Handbook for Young Women, written by Countess de G.
Right.
And we're using it to explore the incredible, exhausting, and frankly bizarre expectations placed on a 19th century woman running a household.
Because she wasn't just planning dinner menus.
Not at all. She was the resident cosmetic chemist, the master perfumer, and the primary care physician all rolled into one.
The psychological and physical burden of that is just staggering when you really look at the recipes she had to follow.
Oh, I can only imagine.
This handbook wasn't some fun hobby guide. It was a survival manual.
Yeah, a total necessity.
Because in a world before commercial pharmacies and before the germ theory of disease was widely accepted, the line between a domestic chore and literal pharmaceutical manufacturing just, well, it didn't exist.
Right. If your family needed something, you basically had to build a factory in your kitchen to make it.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's unpack this. I want to start with the more recognizable aspects of getting ready for the day.
The morning routine.
Yeah. If you're listening to this while doing your morning routine, think about how effortless it is. You squeeze toothpaste, you spritz some perfume, you rub in a moisturizer.
It takes 5 minutes.
Exactly. But let's look at how wildly labor-intensive that exact same hygiene routine was in 1833. Let's talk about perfumed waters.
Right, which was a massive staple of the era.
Yeah.
But as you mentioned, it wasn't something you just picked up at a department store.
No, not at all. The handbook details how these women had to distill their own fragrances completely from scratch.
Which is an intense process.
Right. So the recipe for eau de cologne required sourcing and mixing raw essences of bergamot, lemon, rosemary, and melissa, and then combining it with a wine spirit.
And that's just the basic one.
Right. If you wanted eau de bouquet, you were out there gathering jasmine, violet tuberose, rose, and bitter orange blossom.
What's really fascinating here is that this is not just about, mixing pleasant smells in a bowl.
Right. There's actual science to it.
Exactly. Getting those essential oils in 1833 meant understanding raw extraction, distillation, and chemical preservation in alcohol.
You essentially had to be a chemist.
You did. You had to understand the volatility of these botanical compounds. If your alcohol concentration was off, or if you exposed the mixture to too much air, those delicate floral compounds would just evaporate.
Oh, man.
Or worse, the whole batch would turn rancid and you'd have to start over.
It's like being expected to formulate your own Chanel Known Fa 5 from raw vegetation before you've even had breakfast.
That's a great way to put it.
But let's move to oral care, because this is where the chemistry gets really aggressive.
Oh, the tooth waters.
Yeah. The handbook has a recipe for an eau parfait for the teeth. A perfect water.
Perfect water, right?
The ingredient list is this wild concoction of brandy, anise, cinnamon, mint oil, and cinchona bark.
Which is a very specific choice.
Right. Oh, and to give it a nice appealing pink color, they added cochineal, which is literally crushed up scale insects.
Yes, the cochineal provides that lovely, marketable, rosy hue. Through insect blood, basically.
Gross.
Very. But the really critical ingredient you mentioned there is the cinchona bark, which was also historically known as quina.
Right, which also shows up in their tooth powder recipe.
Yes, it was everywhere in oral care.
So the handbook tells you to take equal parts pulverized, well-burnt charcoal and cinchona bark, sift it through a fine crepe fabric, and use it to strengthen the gums without damaging the enamel.
That's quite the process.
I have to challenge this, though. I mean, you're rubbing burnt wood and tree bark onto your teeth. Doesn't that sound like a recipe for completely destroying your enamel with microabrasions?
Well, that's exactly why the instructions specify sifting it through fine crepe fabric.
Oh, because it's a super fine mesh.
Exactly. They didn't have paper coffee filters or laboratory sieves back then. Crepe is this tightly woven silk or wool dressmaking fabric.
Ah, okay.
So it was really the only material they had fine enough to act as a microfilter. It ensured only the absolute finest dust made it into the powder, specifically to protect the enamel.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. But why use cinchona bark specifically?
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, cinchona is the natural source of quinine.
Wait, like what's in tonic water?
It's exactly like tonic water. Today, we know quinine primarily as an anti-malarial drug,
Right.
but chemically, it is a powerful active botanical compound. It has intense, astringent, and mild antimicrobial properties.
Oh, wow. So this wasn't just a flavor profile like our modern mint toothpaste.
No, not at all. This was raw, potent medicine. They were using the quinine to physically tighten the gum tissue, restrict bleeding, and fight off infection.
Okay, so the charcoal acts as the mechanical abrasive to scrape off the plaque, right?
Yes, exactly.
And then the finely sifted cinchona bark acts as the medicated gum treatment. That's actually a highly rational formulation.
It is entirely rational. But think about the sheer labor involved in making it.
Yeah, true.
You're burning your own wood to the right consistency, grinding tough tree bark with a mortar and pestle by hand,
Yeah.
and then ruining your expensive dressmaking fabric just to filter it.
Just to brush your teeth.
Exactly.
And as exhausting as that sounds, if alcohol was the engine of their oral care, animal fat was the absolute workhorse of their skincare.
Oh, absolutely. The fats were essential.
Because making perfume and tooth powder was honestly a walk in the park compared to the pomades.
The pomades were a whole different level of labor.
Seriously. Formulating cosmetics back then required a level of culinary endurance that totally bridges the gap between hygiene and grueling physical labor.
Yes, it was a massive shift from water and alcohol-based mixtures to heavy lipid extractions.
Exactly. So there's a relatively simple pomade for cracked lips and hands.
Okay.
You take almond oil, wax, and alcanna root, melt it in a water bath, press it through linen, and scent it with rose essence.
Which sounds lovely, actually.
It does. Sounds like making a fancy artisanal lip balm.
Yeah.
But then we get to the pommade de concombre,
The cucumber pomades.
the cucumber pomade. Listen to this prep list. If you want soft, supple skin in 1833, you need to slice 8 pounds of cucumbers.
8 pounds.
8 pounds,
Wow.
plus 1 pound of ripe melon, half a pound of rennet apple.
That is a massive amount of fruit.
And you mix all of that fresh produce with 1 quart of cow's milk and 1 solid pound of pork lard. They specifically call it svinister in the Swedish text.
Just visualizing that mountain of wet produce and raw pig fat sitting on a kitchen table is quite something.
And you aren't even done. The handbook casually notes that this massive mixture has to digest in a water bath for 10 hours.
10 whole hours.
10 hours. I have to ask, is this actually about skincare, or is it an extreme endurance test for household managers?
It really blurs the line, doesn't it?
I mean, you're essentially slow cooking a fruit and pork lard stew for half a day just to moisturize your face.
It is incredibly intense labor. But again, we have to look at the underlying scientific mechanics of what they were trying to achieve here.
Okay, what's the science behind the pork stew?
Well, today, if you look at your modern moisturizer, it's largely water-based. It uses highly refined petroleum derivatives, synthetics, and modern emulsifiers to keep the water and oil mixed.
Right, so it doesn't separate in the bottle.
Exactly. But they didn't have chemical emulsifiers in 1833. They had to rely on animal fats, specifically pork lard,
Because it mixes well.
because it is an incredibly effective lipid vehicle.
A lipid vehicle. I think I need an analogy for that.
Sure.
Are we talking about something like making garlic butter, where the fat just absorbs the flavor of whatever is sitting in it?
That is the perfect analogy, actually. Fat is a master thief.
A master thief.
Yes. It steals and traps the botanical properties of whatever you soak in it. So that 10-hour slow simmer wasn't just busy work.
They were actually extracting stuff.
Exactly. They were using the steady, low heat and the fat to chemically extract the soothing, hydrating properties of the cucumbers in the melon.
Oh, I see.
The lard breaks down the cell walls of the plants, absorbs the moisture and the active botanicals, and then preserves them once the mixture cools and solidifies.
Okay, but what about the rennet apples? What do those do?
So rennet apples are highly acidic, firm apples. They're traditionally used in cheese making to help curdle milk.
Right.
In this context, that acidity helps break down the tough cellular structure of the cucumbers and melon over those 10 hours. It basically allows the lard to extract maximum nutrients.
Wow. Okay, and then they press it through linen.
Yeah, pressing the whole hot mess through linen at the end was their way of filtering out the rotting organic plant matter.
Yeah.
That way the fat itself wouldn't spoil.
So you were left with a highly concentrated, cucumber-infused puck of pig fat,
Pretty much.
which honestly would probably be incredibly moisturizing. I mean, lard is chemically very similar to the natural sebum produced by human skin.
It is. It works very well as a barrier cream.
Well, it probably didn't smell like a modern day spa despite the fruit.
No, you definitely go to bed smelling a bit like a Sunday roast.
Right.
But what's crucial here is that this reliance on heavy, accessible ingredients like pork lard wasn't just for vanity or beauty routines.
No.
The household manager making that cucumber cream is the exact same woman functioning as the family doctor.
Right, of course. So the lard jumped straight from the vanity table to the sickbed.
Exactly.
Let's talk about whooping cough in children then, because the treatments here reflect true desperation.
They really do. It was a terrifying disease.
For an internal remedy, the Countess advises infusing elecampane root in wine vinegar for 8 days. You give the coughing child a teaspoon of this mixed with violet or almond syrup.
Which actually makes sense historically.
Oh, it does?
Yeah. Elecampane has a long documented history in herbalism as an expectorant. It's a compound that helps clear heavy mucus from the lungs.
Ah, okay.
And just like the fat in the pomade, the sharp wine vinegar acts as the chemical solvent to extract the active compounds from that tough root.
Right, the vinegar pulls the medicine out. But then the handbook has an escalation protocol, which is wild.
Yes, the wine protocol.
If the child's chest is severely affected, the mother is advised to swap out the vinegar for, quote, excellent good wine, preferably Burgundy.
The strong prescription.
I am just trying to imagine a world where the standard pediatric care for a severe respiratory infection is a shot of high-quality French red wine.
It's definitely not what pediatricians recommend today.
No, but it gets stranger. Externally, mothers were instructed to crush raw garlic in a mortar and then mix it with an equal amount of our old friend pork lard to create an ointment.
Back to the lard.
Always the lard. And you don't rub this on the child's chest, you rub it onto the soles of the child's feet twice a day to cure a stubborn cough.
Yes.
I don't understand this at all. Why the feet? That seems completely counterintuitive for a lung problem.
It's just to a modern mind, absolutely. But this is a classic example of the historical medical theory of derivation.
Derivation.
Or drawing out, as they called it.
Like drawing the illness away from the lungs.
Yes, exactly. For centuries, the prevailing belief was that the body was governed by humors and vital energies.
Right, the 4 humors.
So if the lungs are congested and failing, you need to create a competing site of intense irritation or stimulation far away from those vital organs.
Oh, I see.
The goal is to literally draw the sickness downward and out of the body. And the soles of the feet were considered these highly porous gateways.
So the garlic acts as the irritant.
Exactly. Garlic is a powerful, broad-spectrum antimicrobial and a very strong aromatic.
Right, it has that intense smell.
The belief was that its penetrating properties would seep into the skin carried by the lard, acting as that lipid vehicle again.
There's the lipid vehicle again.
Nope. And they thought it would magnetically pull the toxic vapors of the cough down through the body and out through the extremities.
Wow. Okay, so wine and garlic foot rubs for a childhood cough.
That was the standard.
But what happened when the household manager had to handle life-threatening acute medical emergencies?
That's where things get really intense.
Like a stroke or severe vision loss. Because the remedies in this handbook seem to shift from botanical support to basically sensory assault.
They absolutely do. They shift from trying to gently manipulate the body's humors to trying to violently shock the nervous system back online.
Let's look at the treatment for strokes, which the book calls slag.
Right.
Today, a stroke is a terrifying race to the hospital for clot-busting drugs or neurosurgery. In 1833, it was treated with a highly potent aromatic paste.
Very potent.
You took distilled oils of clove, lavender, myrrh, and wormwood. Then you added amber, something called judbeck, nutmeg oil, and Peruvian balsam.
A very heavy mixture.
And you rub this thick paste onto the nostrils, the temples, or the paralyzed limbs to, quote, warm and irritate the patient.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I have to stop you there. What on earth is judbeck? Because it sounds like you are rubbing construction materials onto a stroke victim.
Bro, you basically are.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah. Judbeck is bitumen of Judea. It is literally naturally occurring asphalt.
Asphalt.
Yes. And amber, in this context, is crushed fossilized tree resin.
Why are they putting asphalt and tree resin on someone's face?
To trap the heat. This goes back to that humoral theory we discussed earlier.
Okay.
A stroke was often viewed as a sudden, catastrophic coldness, like a blockage of the vital spirits or a total failure of nervous energy.
So they needed to warm them up.
Right. The medical response was counter-irritation. Clove and nutmeg oils are incredibly volatile and physically hot, almost burning on the skin.
Oh, I can imagine.
By mixing those burning oils with sticky, heavy resins like amber and asphalt, you create a thermal patch. It clings to the skin and relentlessly drives that chemical heat downward into the tissue.
So they believed if you could irritate the nervous system enough with this burning asphalt paste, you could force the body's energy to start flowing again.
Exactly. To wake up the paralyzed muscles.
It's essentially chemical defibrillation.
That is exactly what it is. A desperate attempt to jumpstart the nervous system.
That is wild. But here's where it gets even more intense, though.
Oh, the cataracts.
Yeah. If you thought the stroke treatment was wild, wait until you hear the cure for black cataracts, which was their term for severe vision loss or blindness.
It is a rough one.
The Handbook's treatment is shockingly gruesome. The instructions say to take a whole sheep's liver, place it in a glazed stone pot with water.
Right.
Then you seal the lid shut using gray paper and boil it on the stove until half the water has evaporated inside.
Creating a pressurized, sealed vessel of boiling organ meat.
Yes. Then the patient removes the paper seal, opens the lid, and immediately holds their face over the pot.
Right into the steam.
They were instructed to sweat profusely while the steam from this boiling sheep's liver hits their eyes and face.
It's hard to even picture.
And you were supposed to do this 3 times a week before bed. I just can't get past the logistics of this.
It's a lot of effort.
You're setting up a meat sauna in your bedroom. It's like a modern spa facial steamer, except instead of a nice eucalyptus mist, you're getting a blast of vaporized sheep organs directly into your failing eyeballs.
The smell alone would be completely overwhelming.
How did anyone think this would cure clouded islands?
Well, there is a deeply rooted, highly specific historical logic at play here. It goes back to the concept of sympathetic magic, which heavily influenced early medicine.
Wait, sympathetic magic, like the idea that, cures like.
Precisely. In many historical medical traditions, the liver was considered the ultimate seat of blood, vitality, and life force in a mammal.
Okay, because it's so nutrient dense.
Right. So the scientific theory of the day was that by boiling it in a sealed, pressurized environment, you were releasing the pure, vital essence of the animal into the steam.
I think I see where this is going.
A cataract was seen as the eye dying or losing its vitality.
Yeah.
So by exposing the failing eyes to these specific liver vapors, the diseased tissue would absorb the life force of the healthy organ.
Wow. You are literally trying to steam the vitality of the sheep into the patient's blind eyes.
Exactly.
So they didn't know the physical lens of the eye was clouding over with proteins. They just thought the eye was running out of energy.
Right?
And they were trying to feed it vaporized organ power.
It really highlights how desperately they were searching for solutions in a pre-surgical world. They were using the only tools they had: heat, animal byproducts, and sympathetic logic.
Which brings us to our final section and what I consider the absolute pinnacle of desperation in this entire handbook.
The toothache.
We've seen extreme measures for strokes and blindness. But what about a common, everyday, excruciating pain? Something almost everyone experienced back then, the toothache.
Before modern dentistry, before Novocaine or local anesthetics, a severe tooth infection wasn't just a nuisance.
No, it was agonizing.
It was an agonizing, prolonged, sometimes life-threatening crisis that could last for weeks.
And that level of unrelenting pain leads to wild solutions. The handbook offers a few options. The first is the magnetic method.
Oh, this one is fascinating.
You take a piece of magnetized steel, specifically sized. The patient has to hold their mouth open and physically face north.
Right.
You touch the north pole of the magnet to the aching tooth. The book claims this will cause a strong cooling effect, a slight shaking, and will take away the pain in 3 to 4 minutes.
That's very specific.
Oh, but if that doesn't work, you can stay facing north and try the south pole. I mean, why does facing north matter to a toothache?
This is a perfect snapshot of 1830s cutting-edge pseudoscience. This is the era of mesmerism, or animal magnetism.
Oh, like hypnosis?
Sort of, yeah. Scientists had just started to truly map the Earth's magnetic fields, and electricity was this new, invisible, magical force.
So people were obsessed with it.
Exactly. Medical practitioners assumed that the human nervous system was governed by the exact same magnetic currents.
Okay.
They believed that by physically aligning the patient with the Earth's magnetic North Pole and introducing a localized magnet to the inflamed nerve, you could manually realign the disrupted electrical currents causing the pain.
So they were basically trying to reboot the tooth's Wi-Fi router.
That's a very modern way to look at it. But
Yeah.
yes, they were trying to manipulate these unseen forces.
Well, if the invisible magnetic forces failed, You could try the smoke method.
Right.
You throw 7 different types of seeds onto a low fire, capture the smoke in a pot, and inhale the steam until your head is covered in sweat and you start uncontrollably salivating.
Another intense sensory experience.
But the true masterpiece of 19th century trial and error insanity is the Ladybug method.
The Ladybug method.
The Handbook credits a man named Hirsch with this cure. If you have a toothache, you go out, find a ladybug. The text specifically says Maria Nickelpiga.
Right.
You crush the poor ladybug between your fingers and then immediately jam those bug crushed fingers directly onto the rotting, painful tooth.
It's so visceral.
I just want to know, who was the first person to look at a screaming patient with a toothache, look down at a tiny spotted insect on a leaf and say, I have a medical intervention?
The visual of that is astonishing, I agree. But this actually raises a fascinating question about how human beings process pain.
Oh.
Yeah, and the incredible power of the placebo effect.
Yeah.
When you are in blinding agony from a dying tooth nerve, you will try anything.
True.
But more importantly, the sheer act of doing something highly specific and bizarre has a neurological effect.
It distracts you.
It's extreme distraction born from absolute necessity. Imagine you have a pounding toothache. Now imagine someone makes you stand up, forces you to figure out which way north is, holds your mouth open, and presses cold steel to your gums while confidently telling you a magnetic current is freezing the nerve.
That's a lot to focus on.
Or they make you inhale burning seed smoke until you're sweating and drooling. Or they crush a brightly colored insect and rub it into your mouth.
Right.
The sheer psychological shock, the intense sensory distraction, and the powerful belief that an authoritative cure is being administered can trigger the brain to release a flood of endorphins, which temporarily dulls the pain.
So the crushed ladybug didn't magically heal the bacterial infection in the tooth.
No, definitely not.
But the sheer absurd weirdness of the ladybug protocol distracted your brain enough to give you a few minutes of chemical relief.
Exactly. It is a testament to the power of belief and the desperate need to feel like you are in control of your suffering.
So what does this all mean for us today? When we look back at Countess de G's Handbook from 1833, it's so easy to just laugh at the boiling sheep livers and the ladybugs.
It really is.
But what really stands out to me is the incredible, almost unimaginable burden placed on the women reading this book.
They were the ultimate generalists.
Yeah.
They had to be botanists, identifying the right roots in the woods, chemists understanding distillation and lipid extraction, pharmacists compounding active dosages,
All of it.
and nurses applying these intense treatments to their sick children or paralyzed parents. And they did it all while managing the daily cooking, cleaning, and strict social expectations of the era.
It is a profound level of responsibility. They are using everything at their disposal, from fine floral essences to pig fat, from French wine to natural asphalt,
Whatever they could find.
just to keep their families alive and functioning. It gives you a deep, profound appreciation for the invisible, sanitized infrastructure of modern science that we rely on every single morning when we open our medicine cabinet.
We outsource all of this labor and anxiety to modern supply chains and regulatory boards.
Yeah.
They didn't have that luxury.
They really didn't. Which brings me to a final thought for you, the listener, as you go about your perfectly sanitized, effortlessly convenient day.
Something to think about.
We look at this 1833 handbook and shudder at the sheer amount of manual labor, raw animal fats, and unregulated botanical chemistry these women had to endure just to maintain a basic standard of health and beauty.
Right.
But look at the modern world right now. Look at the explosion of the multi-billion-dollar, all-natural, chemical-free DIY wellness movement.
Oh, that's a great point.
People are tossing out their FDA-approved moisturizers and clinically tested medicines to make their own tallow-based skin creams in their kitchens and forage for raw herbal tinctures.
It's becoming hugely popular again.
So are we, in our pursuit of returning to nature, voluntarily stepping right back into the exact same exhausting, labor-intensive domestic trap that the women of 1833 prayed to escape from?